Welcome to Midnight Murmur. Here, the night comes alive with chilling tales and spine-tingling stories. If you crave the thrill of the unknown and the eerie whisper of the supernatural, you've found your new haunt. Join us as we dive into the darkest corners of the human mind, unraveling short horror stories that will keep you up at night. Hit that subscribe button, turn off the lights, and let the murmur begin. The Haunting of Maple Street. Chapter 1. The Move-In. The old mansion on Maple Street had always been a source of local legends. Stories of hauntings, ghostly apparitions, and strange disappearances swirled around it like the fog that often shrouded the property. Despite the warnings and eerie tales, the Martin family decided to purchase the house, drawn by its low price and historical charm. Claire and David Martin, along with their two children, Lily and Ben, moved in on a dreary autumn day. The air was thick with a scent of decaying leaves and damp earth. As they unloaded their belongings, Claire couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The house loomed over them, its windows like dark, unblinking eyes. "Come on, kids, let's explore," David said, trying to lift the spirits of his family. They ventured inside, their footsteps echoing through the empty halls. The house was grand but worn, with creaking floorboards and peeling wallpaper. The walls seemed to close in on them, and the air was thick and stale, as if the house hadn't been breathed in for years. "Mom, look at this," Lily called from the living room. Claire walked in to find her daughter holding an old, dusty book. The cover was adorned with strange symbols, and the pages were filled with handwritten notes and drawings. "Put that down, sweetie," Claire said, a chill running down her spine. "It's probably just some old journal." But as Lily placed the book back on the shelf, Claire noticed a cold breeze sweep through the room, despite the windows being closed. She shivered and decided it was just her imagination playing tricks on her. However, the shadows in the corners of the room seemed to shift and flicker, as if something unseen was moving just out of sight. Chapter 2. The Strange Noises. The first night in the house was restless. The Martins tried to settle in, but the strange noises kept them awake. It started with faint whispers, barely audible, but unmistakably there. The sound of footsteps echoed through the halls, even though everyone was in bed. The creaking floorboards seemed to carry the weight of invisible beings, walking aimlessly through the house. David dismissed it as the house settling, but Claire was less convinced. She lay awake, listening to the eerie sounds, feeling an inexplicable sense of dread. Around midnight, she heard a door creak open. She sat up, her heart pounding, and saw a shadow move across the hallway, long and distorted, like a twisted reflection of something sinister. "David, did you see that?" she whispered urgently, shaking her husband awake. He groggily sat up and looked where Claire was pointing, but the shadow was gone. "You're just tired, honey. It's an old house." "Old houses make noises," he said, trying to reassure her. Claire nodded, but the feeling of being watched persisted. She finally drifted off to sleep, but her dreams were filled with dark figures and whispered warnings, their voices like a distant, haunting melody. Chapter 3. The Basement. The next day, the family decided to explore the basement. It was musty and dimly lit, with cobwebs hanging from the ceiling. Old furniture and boxes were stacked haphazardly, covered in dust. The air was thick with the smell of mildew and something else, something metallic and cold. "Let's see what's down here," David said, his voice echoing in the confined space. He found an old light switch and flipped it on. A single bulb flickered to life, casting eerie shadows on the walls. The shadows seemed to dance and flicker, as if mocking their presence. As they rummaged through the boxes, Ben found an old, rusted key. "Hey, Dad, look at this," he exclaimed, holding it up. David took the key and examined it. "I wonder what this opens," he mused. "Maybe it's for a secret room," Lily suggested excitedly. They searched the basement for a lock that matched the key, but found nothing. Disappointed, they decided to head back upstairs. As they were leaving, Claire noticed something odd. The wall at the far end of the basement seemed different. She walked over and tapped on it, realizing it sounded hollow. "David, come here," she called. "I think there's something behind this wall." David joined her, and, after a moment's inspection, found a hidden latch. He pulled it, and a section of the wall swung open, revealing a narrow, dark passage. The air that wafted out was cold and fetid, like a long-forgotten tomb. "Wow, a secret room," Lily exclaimed. "Let's see where it leads," David said, grabbing a flashlight. Chapter 4. The Hidden Room. The passage led to a small, hidden room that appeared untouched for decades. The air was stale, and the walls were lined with old books and strange artifacts. In the center of the room was a large, ornate mirror with a cracked frame. The mirror's surface was tarnished, and dark stains marred the glass, resembling bloodstains that had been unsuccessfully wiped away. "Look at this place," Claire whispered, her voice filled with awe and fear. "It's like something out of a horror movie." David shone the flashlight around the room, revealing more strange symbols carved into the walls. "What do you think this all means?" he asked, his voice tinged with excitement and apprehension. "I don't know, but it gives me the creeps," Claire replied. Lily and Ben were fascinated by the room, particularly the mirror. "Mom, look at this mirror. It's so old and creepy," Lily said, running her fingers along the cracked frame. Her touch left a faint trail, as if the mirror was absorbing her warmth. "Don't touch it," Claire warned, her instincts screaming that something was wrong. As they prepared to leave the hidden room, Ben noticed a small, locked chest in the corner. "Dad, can we open this?" he asked, pointing to the chest. David tried the rusted key they found earlier, and it fit perfectly. He turned the key, and the chest creaked open, revealing old photographs, letters, and a small, intricately carved wooden box. The photographs showed the mansion in its prime, but each one had dark smudges, like shadows of people who shouldn't be there. "What's in the box?" Lily asked, her curiosity piqued. David carefully opened the wooden box, revealing a set of old, tarnished coins and a folded piece of parchment. He unfolded the parchment, revealing a detailed map of the house and the surrounding property. "Look at this," he said, showing the map to Claire. "It's a map of the house, but there are extra rooms and passages marked on it that we haven't seen." "This is getting too weird," Claire said, feeling a knot of anxiety tightening in her stomach. "Let's get out of here." Chapter 5. The Mirror's Secret. That night, Claire couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the hidden room and the strange artifacts they had found. The cracked mirror, in particular, haunted her thoughts. There was something deeply unsettling about it. Unable to rest, she decided to go back to the hidden room alone. She quietly made her way to the basement and through the passage, flashlight in hand. As she entered the room, the beam of light fell on the mirror, and she felt a cold shiver run down her spine. Suddenly, she heard faint whispering, growing louder and more urgent. "Help us. Free us." The voices pleaded. Claire gasped and stepped back, the flashlight slipping from her grasp and clattering to the floor. In the dim light, she saw a shadowy figure in the mirror, reaching out towards her. Its hand seemed to press against the glass, as if it was trying to break through. She screamed and fled the room, the whispers echoing in her mind. Chapter 6. The Haunting Escalates. The next morning, Claire told David about her experience in the hidden room. He was skeptical, but could see the genuine fear in her eyes. "Maybe we should call someone to look into this," Claire suggested. "A paranormal investigator or something." David reluctantly agreed, and they contacted a local paranormal expert, Dr. Evelyn Harris. Dr. Harris arrived later that day, equipped with various devices to detect supernatural activity. As she conducted her investigation, the house seemed to come alive with activity. Doors slammed shut on their own, and the temperature dropped suddenly. The whispers grew louder, and the shadowy figures became more frequent. "This house has a powerful presence," Dr. Harris said, her face pale. "There are multiple entities here, and they are very angry." "Can you help us?" Claire asked, her voice trembling. "I'll do my best," Dr. Harris replied. "But it won't be easy. These spirits have been disturbed for a long time, and they won't leave without a fight." Chapter 7. The Ritual. Dr. Harris explained that they would need to perform a cleansing ritual to banish the spirit. She gathered the family in the living room and set up candles, incense, and other sacred objects. "We need to stay strong and united," she said. "The spirits will try to frighten and divide us, but we mustn't let them." As Dr. Harris began the ritual, the house seemed to react violently. The walls shook, and the air grew thick with a malevolent presence. The candles flickered, and the whispers became deafening, like a chorus of the damned. The shadowy figures appeared, more tangible and terrifying than ever. They moved towards the family, their eyes glowing with a hateful fire. "Stay close," Dr. Harris shouted. "We need to finish the ritual." Claire held onto her children, trying to shield them from the approaching shadows. The temperature dropped further, and a cold, clammy hand brushed against her arm, sending a jolt of terror through her. "Spirits of this house," Dr. Harris intoned, "we command you to leave. Return to the darkness from whence you came." The shadows recoiled, their forms flickering like smoke. The air crackled with energy, and a high-pitched wail filled the room. The figures seemed to dissolve, leaving behind a sense of stillness. "It's done," Dr. Harris said, her voice weary. "But this isn't over. The spirits have been weakened, but they are still here. We need to find out what is keeping them bound to this house." Chapter 8. The Ghostly Pleas. That night, Claire had another vivid nightmare. She was back in the hidden room, surrounded by the shadowy figures. Their faces were clearer now, filled with desperation and sorrow. "Free us," they pleaded, their voices echoing in her mind. "Release us from this torment." She woke up in a cold sweat, her heart racing. She knew they had to do something more. The spirits were not at peace. The next day, Claire and David decided to delve deeper into the history of the mansion. They searched through old records, newspapers, and any information they could find about the previous owners and the house's past. They discovered that the house had a dark history. The original owners, the Blackwood family, were known for their involvement in dark rituals and occult practices. Many people in the town had gone missing during their time, and it was believed that the Blackwoods had something to do with the disappearances. The more they learned, the more they realized that the spirits were likely the victims of the Blackwood family's dark practices. They had been trapped in the house, unable to move on. "We need to find a way to break the curse," Claire said. "We can't just leave them like this." Chapter 9. The Historian's Visit. Determined to find answers, Claire and David decided to consult a local historian, Mr. Jameson, who had extensive knowledge of the town's history. They invited him to the house, hoping he could shed some light on the mansion's dark past. Mr. Jameson arrived with a stack of old documents and photographs. As they sat in the living room, he began to tell the story of the house. This mansion was built in the late 1800s by a wealthy family, the Blackwoods, he began. They were known for their interest in the occult and performed numerous rituals in this house. Many people went missing around that time, and it's believed that the Blackwoods were involved in their disappearances. Claire and David listened intently, their fear growing with each revelation. After the Blackwoods vanished mysteriously, the house changed hands several times, Mr. Jameson continued. Each family that lived here reported strange occurrences and hauntings. Eventually, the house was abandoned. and its dark reputation grew. "Do you think the spirits of those missing people are still here?" Claire asked, her voice trembling. "It's very likely," Mr. J. Ameson replied. "The Blackwoods might have trapped their souls here through their rituals." Chapter 10. The Hidden Journal. Intrigued by Mr. Jameson's story, Claire decided to search the house for more clues. She remembered the journal Lily had found on their first day and decided to examine it more closely. As she flipped through the pages, she discovered detailed accounts of the Blackwoods' rituals and experiments. The handwriting grew more frantic and desperate towards the end, describing a final, powerful ritual meant to bind the spirits of their victims to the house. Claire felt a chill run down her spine as she reads the final entry. "The ritual is complete. The spirits are bound, but they are restless. They demand release. I fear we have unleashed something we cannot control." She knew then that the spirits' pleas for help were genuine. They were trapped, and the only way to free them was to reverse the ritual. Chapter 11. The Plan. Claire shared her discovery with David and Mr. Jameson. They realized they needed to perform a counter-ritual to release the trapped spirits. "We'll need to gather the original artifacts and perform the ritual in the hidden room," Mr. Jameson said. "It's risky, but it's the only way." The family agreed, though fear gnawed at their hearts. They gathered the artifacts from the hidden room and prepared for the ritual. Dr. Harris returned to assist, bringing additional protective measures. "We must be careful," Dr. Harris warned. "The spirits will be desperate and may try to harm us." Chapter 12. The Counter Ritual. That night, the family and their helpers gathered in the hidden room. The atmosphere was tense, and the air crackled with anticipation. They placed the artifacts in a circle and lit candles, their faces illuminated by the flickering flames. Dr. Harris and Mr. Jameson began the incantation, their voices strong and steady. The room grew colder, and the shadows seemed to come alive, swirling around them. "Spirits bound to this place," Dr. Harris intoned. "We seek to free you from your torment. Accept our offering and find peace." The shadows grew darker, and the whispers became a cacophony of anguished cries. The ground shook, and the candles flickered violently. "Stay strong," Mr. Jameson shouted. "We're almost there." The ritual reached its climax, and with a final, powerful incantation, a blinding light filled the room. The shadows dissipated, and the whispers ceased. The air grew warm, and a sense of peace settled over the room. "It's done," Dr. Harris said, her voice filled with relief. "The spirits are free." Chapter 13. The Peaceful Days. The days following the ritual were peaceful. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, and the house felt warm and welcoming. The family began to settle into their new home, finally able to enjoy its charm without fear. Claire, David, Lily, and Ben spent time exploring the house and its grounds, discovering its hidden beauty. They planted a garden, fixed up the old furniture, and made the mansion their own. But despite the newfound peace, Claire couldn't shake the feeling that something was still watching them. The sense of unease lingered at the edges of her consciousness, like a dark cloud on the horizon. Chapter 14. The Return of the Shadows. One evening, as the family was gathered in the living room, Claire noticed a cold breeze sweep through the room. She glanced at the window, but it was closed. "Did anyone else feel that?" she asked, her voice tinged with anxiety. David nodded. "Yeah, it felt like someone opened a window." Before they could investigate, the lights flickered and went out. The room plunged into darkness, and the familiar whispers returned, louder and more menacing than before. "Not again," Claire whispered, fear gripping her heart. The shadows reappeared, more defined and aggressive. They moved towards the family, their eyes glowing with malevolent intent. "We have to get out of here," David shouted, grabbing the children. They ran to the front door, but it slammed shut before they could reach it. The house seemed to come alive, trapping them inside. Chapter 15. The Entity. In the darkness, a new presence made itself known. It was more powerful and terrifying than the spirits they had encountered before. A deep, guttural voice filled the air, sending chills down their spines. "You cannot escape," it growled. "This house is mine." Claire realized that they were dealing with something far more dangerous than restless spirits. This was an ancient, malevolent entity that had been awakened by their rituals. "Who are you?" she demanded, trying to sound brave. The entity laughed, a sound that echoed through the halls. "I am the guardian of this place. The spirits were my prisoners, and you have freed them. Now you will take their place." Chapter 16. The Battle. Determined not to give in to the entity's demands, the family fought back. They gathered in the living room, their faces filled with fear and determination. "We won't let you win," David said, his voice steady. "We will find a way to defeat you." The entity laughed again, and the shadows closed in. The family joined hands, drawing strength from each other. They remembered the rituals and incantations they had learned, and began to chant, their voices strong and united. The entity howled in rage, and the shadows writhed in pain. The air crackled with energy as the family fought to banish the malevolent presence. "We are stronger than you," Claire shouted. "You will not take us." Chapter 17. The Revelation. As the family chanted, Claire had a sudden realization. The ancient artifacts they had found in the hidden room were not just relics of the past. They were powerful tools that could be used to banish the entity. "David, get the artifacts," she shouted. "We can use them to defeat it." David rushed to the hidden room and grabbed the artifacts, bringing them back to the living room. The family placed them in a circle and focused their energy on the objects. "Spirits of this house," Claire intoned, "we call upon your power to help us. Together, we can banish this evil." The artifacts glowed with a bright, ethereal light, and the shadows began to recede. The entity screamed in fury, its voice echoing through the house. "You cannot defeat me," it roared. Chapter 18. The Final Confrontation. The family continued their chant, drawing strength from the artifacts and each other. The entity's power waned, and the shadows began to dissolve. "Leave this place," Claire shouted. "You have no power here." The entity's form flickered and wavered, its strength fading. With a final, desperate howl, it vanished, leaving behind a sense of calm and peace. The family collapsed, exhausted but victorious. The house was silent, and the oppressive atmosphere was gone. "It's over," David said, his voice filled with relief. "We've done it." Chapter 19. The Aftermath. In the days that followed, the family slowly recovered from their ordeal. They repaired the damage to the house and continued to make it their home. The sense of unease was gone, replaced by a feeling of safety and comfort. Claire and David spoke with Dr. Harris and Mr. Jameson, who helped them understand what had happened. The entity had been an ancient guardian, bound to the house by the Blackwood's rituals. By freeing the spirits, they had weakened its power, and with the artifact's help, they had banished it for good. Chapter 20. A New Beginning. As spring arrived, the mansion on Maple Street was transformed. The garden bloomed with vibrant flowers, and the air was filled with the sound of birdsong. The family had faced their fears and emerged stronger, united by their shared experience. One evening, as they sat on the porch, watching the sunset, Claire smiled and took David's hand. "We did it," she said softly. "We made this house our home." David nodded, his eyes filled with pride and love. "Yes, we did, and we'll always be together, no matter what." The family embraced, knowing that they had not only defeated the darkness that had plagued their home, but had also found a new beginning. The mansion on Maple Street was no longer a place of terror, but a sanctuary of hope and new possibilities.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more chilling content.